farming at Raukawa. Have Ria Dacent next to me. She's our Senior Policy Advisor on the farmer up Kirui. And we have Anthea Yule over there. She's our Meat and Wool Chair and Vice President and farmer up west of Fernhill. I'd just say thank you for having our submission, and we acknowledge other submissions made by individual members of Federated Farmers. I'll hand over to Ria for a start and then tag team later on.
So I've got a couple of themes that I'd like to discuss with you at this hearing today. One is the overall rates increases. Then I touch on a couple of projects as perhaps examples. There's the Right Tree, Right Place, and there's the public transport project. If we're running short of time, I might leave the public transport project and you can just read our comments there at leisure. But I'll start off with the rates increases topic. So last time Federated Farmers spoke on the matter of rates, it was in 2018 for the long-term plan then. The main theme was the excessive 19% rates increase, driven by the increase to the general rate which was struck on land value. This average masked the true increases experienced by farms, of which were about 17% for a Wairau farm, 24% for Central Hawke's Bay, and 27% for a Hastings farm. So we are disappointed to stand in front of you and have to highlight the exact same issue for this long-term plan. The average 19% increase to rates are once again excessive. We would also like to see a full funding impact statement and itemised rates examples, because we believe they are necessary for transparency, so we can see exactly what rate mechanisms are increasing, by how much, and who will be paying. It makes it very hard for us to test the rates mechanisms against our policies when we can't see them in the consultation document. So I have an example here. A dry stock 190 hectare farm in Hastings district has experienced an 80% increase in rates since 2017-18 rating year. So that was $943 then to $1,700 for the next rating year. I have chosen these years to compare because the land valuation has remained the same. It is not the valuation that has increased this property's rates, it is the council rating policy. At 19%, Hawke's Bay's average rates increase is up among the highest increases for regional rates this year. The top culprits being 47% in Otago, 24.5% in Canterbury, 20% in Southland, and 19.8% in Northland. We understand that regional councils around the country are dramatically increasing their spending to fund the huge regulatory burden placed on them by central government, especially through its new freshwater rules. This is a burden on our farmers too. But the financial strategy to manage this increased legislation needs to include reduction of non-core spending, not just increasing your rates income. Regulation has to be practical, and the council must not create a rod for its own back when it comes to writing regional rules. Members are understandably disappointed with the implementation of the Tukituki plan change, and we hope that many learnings have been garnered and will be applied. Increased prosecutions have been highlighted as a win for Hawke's Bay Regional Council, but is this getting us closer to the goal of full compliance? The Hawke's Bay increase of an extra 10.5 million operational spend in 1 year alone is eye-watering. Most farmers are still recovering from drought, and I would add M. bovis and TB as well. And almost all ratepayers are still feeling COVID-19 impacts, yet the council dramatically increases its income from rates. Members are concerned that these rates increases are going on overheads and internal spending. We see that more staff are on the cards and even a climate scientist. Is this a good value for rates increases we are experiencing? Or could there be more use of existing resources like Crown Research Institute Climate Science? Federated Farmers urges the council to focus on ensuring the region can best adapt to the expected impacts of climate change, like water storage, and not seek to manage emissions that are already subject to central government work. Farmers do not want any duplication of government emissions provisions and council provisions. How am I going for time?
find you halfway.
Okay. Well, I might just, I'll gloss over the public transport project. So we are concerned that the on-demand public transport pilot looks a lot like an existing private service. You'll be competing directly with an existing private service. And we asked the council to have a look at an Auckland attempt at a very similar project, which didn't work out that well. I have provided a link to that that you can look at later. So we will go down to Right Tree, Right Place now.
The Right Tree, Right Place project I see as a good one in principle, but I see the way it's being done is reinventing the wheel. During our last submission in 18, the project at the time was a future farming initiative and the erosion control scheme, which has 1,400 hectares planted up. Will the Right Tree, Right Place be replacing some of these projects? And it would be good to know how some of the other previous ones have achieved their goals and if another project is in actually fact needed. There is a lot of information out there already, whether it be through the Balanced Farm Environment Awards, the Farm Forestry Awards, the Farm Forestry Association, and even the council's own work on different tree species in different places. So I don't think we need to do another project to prove something. It's already been done and the information is there, and farmers will willingly share it with each other. We need an extension system, not another project to show something. I looked at the Carbon Farming New Zealand Carbon website. They're only interested in 100 hectare minimum packages, and that's where I can see the council having a role with some operational spending on trying to tie people that want to plant trees, such as Air New Zealand and other companies, with farmers that want to plant. And what farmers we need to know is what to plant, where to plant it, how to get the right people and species, and also maybe information on carbon farming, how we can take advantage of the ETS, if it's the right thing for the farm. 2.1 million was put in as operational over 3 years in the plan. Even if you put 600,000 as a council person, that's one person, a full-time person for 3 years, say it's 100,000 to operate a person. Then you can have 1.5 million for on-farm expenditure, 20,000 consultancy fee, that's 75 farms. 75 farms with a consultancy fee, you could have a lot more trees planted than just 5 farms in 3 years' time. And that would be helping get more information out to other individuals and neighbours and those sort of things, because everyone talks to everyone. Our Wairau members are especially anxious that their district will become the carbon sink for the region, allowing other districts to continue farming and retaining in their rural communities while theirs declines. So I think we need to look at what we're doing and how we're doing it, and if we can get the right tree and right place to work, i.e. people plant parts of their farms, that would be a great idea.
So this concludes our spoken presentation today, and thank you for considering our submission, and we look forward to seeing the changes to the long-term plan.
I love that. Questions, councillors? You will.
Thanks, guys. Ray spoke about understanding there's some expenditure coming at us like regulation and therefore cut out non-core spending. Around this table, we've all got our own opinions about what's non-core and definitely a priority or a no-brainer. What would you say as some examples of that?
Well, it's been a bit hard for me to gauge that this year without that full funding impact statement. And I did ask the staff if there was a funding impact statement available, and they told me that they hadn't put it out in the consultation document because it hadn't been part of the audit. Being able to see that would help us, I guess, decide which would be considered core and non-core. I'm pretty sure that you inherently know what core business is for the regional council. We're all expected with our businesses this year to really reduce nice to have or delay that kind of spending. My own farm really suffered under the drought last year, and we also had M. bovis the year before. We were lucky that we didn't have TB as well, like some of our members. We're asking ratepayers to pay for activities that are not core or perhaps could be delayed when they themselves and their businesses are really having to reduce non-core spending.
Great.
Thanks very much for the submission. Take you back to the pest side of things, linked a bit to the forestry job, and you submitted in the past, etc. But have you got any comments on the current structure of funding pests managed by such as forestry versus farms versus etc.?
So for a number of years, Federated Farmers has suggested that you have a hybrid rates funding model. So at the moment, you've got a land value, a rate struck on land value, but that only applies to properties over 4 hectares. Maybe you could have introduce a differential into that if you're seeing there's more problems coming out of, say, forestry blocks versus others. We would also like to see a flat fee that everyone contributes to, and that would make the rate take economical for you to collect from properties that are smaller than 4 hectares. I know that you have introduced the urban possum control program. We would like to see those people contributing to that as well. So I only put a very short bit in this submission because I had spoken about it at length the previous 2 LTP submissions. If you are interested in that, I can, I'm sure you probably have it on your records as well, provide you with that fuller submission we did. I think it was the 2018 LTP on pest control. So obviously, members have been disappointed with pest and weed control the last few years. So it would be nice to have that back to the standards that we enjoyed previously, because it was a countrywide excellent example that we would hold up to other councils.
Thanks.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Ria. We're out of time now, but we appreciate your comments, and we're very cognizant of the fact that our farmers get hit really badly when we have these rate rises. So we're very aware of that. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, just a procedural issue to assist with deliberations on this submission. I would be quite keen to see the nature of the funding impact statement that is said to be missing, because I can't shape it, it's not there. If there was one in the equivalent document last time, so I can consider what information the submitter is saying would have assisted them in contributing to this. Would that be possible? Something like that to be circulated? Thank you.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Thank you. Really, really
Thank you,
appreciate
team.
it. Thank you.
Dennis Bell.
Dennis Bell.
You can do. You don't need to. Have you got copies for everyone? Have you, Dennis?
Sorry.
Have you got copies for everyone?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, you can. We'll hand them out to you for you.
Here you go, Dennis. Good enough for
A bit nervous, to be frank.
Oh, you're right.
He's a bit basic compared to the
Just Dennis Bell written here. Thank you. Thank you, Dennis. All submitters have 10 minutes. You can use it how you wish. If you want council to ask questions, you need to keep it short, within the 10 minutes. And just tell me when you're ready to go.
I'm a Central Hawke's Bay farmer. I'm speaking here because I'm worried about my children and grandchildren's life and farming. I'm very pleased to be able to present my point of view concerning the submission form. I want to comment on 5 questions outlined mainly from a beef and sheep farmer's point of view. For the economic well-being of Hawke's Bay, I believe that the council needs to focus on water storage for irrigation. A lot of sheep and cattle go out of Hawke's Bay in a drought. Irrigation will allow us to hold on to stock longer. This can only be good for the local economy, allow more employment and better utilisation of the Port of Napier. On the freshwater science and monitoring charges, I look at this council and see one farmer and assume there may be a representative from Northern Hawke's Bay who is a farmer. Yet I presume that farmers are significant ratepayers, and only you can comment on that. I feel farmers are disproportionately targeted in terms of consent fees, compliance charges and science charges. Yet we are not being acknowledged for the improvements we are making to the environment. Regarding the fees and charges and the science and monitoring costs, what are we getting out of this? Are these charges a form of a tariff to countries that we export to? We are told a better environment will give higher returns. If this is so, the evidence does not correlate with the increased export returns according to the lamb graph from Beef and Lamb New Zealand. I still think our prices are determined by supply and demand. I've been in business for 50 years, plus years, and in my experience, running a business is about managing costs. Everyone has their wish list, but it is about prioritising what is important. Councils need to realise they don't have a blank cheque. Farmers and commercial businesses and families are facing a lot of increased cost at the moment. Are all these projects necessary? My closing comments as a farmer would be that this is Hawke's Bay in New Zealand. We should be celebrating our farmers. New Zealand's competitive advantage is that we grow grass well. All these rules and regulations around land use are taking us away from that. I've always said, along with many other farmers, that in order to keep in business, we've always looked after our land and stock. We don't need another council regulation to tell us how to do it. Farmers in New Zealand are naturally innovative and competitive, and I can speak for that over the years of farming. There is an old saying in farming, you don't own the land owns you. Okay, that's all.
Thank you, Dennis. Questions from councillors on Dennis's submission? Will?
Thank you, Dennis. That was well put and agree with a lot of your points there. Just pick up on your point about the farmer representation, because I'm pretty big on that too. The regional council's responsible for the whole region,
Yes.
and you look at the proportion of land that's under farmers' control, and regional council has to engage with a lot of farmers. So, I wonder if you've got any ideas about improving that representation. And we're seeing at the moment a specific group targeting their own seats. Do you think we should have some farmer seats around this table?
Naturally, I think so, because then that gives a balanced opinion.
Lawyers?
Well, anyway.
We just don't want too many lawyers, Dennis. We won't have a group for lawyers. Craig?
Yeah, thanks very much, Dennis.
Thank you for hearing me.
No worries, mate. Hey, just your closing comments. It's actually pretty much around the table. We often say how much we celebrate things of the land, be it farming animals or trees or whatever. And it's inherent in most of our discussions here. Sometimes it gets lost in translation. But everything we're trying to do here, most of our discussions are about how can we ensure that longevity for your grandkids, etc., etc. And some of I was just going to ask you one thing, that supply and demand thing, I totally agree with you, but do you think that the demands of those we're selling stuff to, their demands of sustainability and all this stuff has gone up as well? Do you agree with that they're demanding more from you?
I feel that is maybe a sort of a tariff that they put on our products to go into the country.
Oh yeah, the
I feel that
government.
farmers are very honest in what they do. Sure, you'll get just like the odd politician or anyone, the odd that isn't
All right, mate.
kosher.
Good on you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Appreciate you coming along and
Thank you.
personally. We have Pauline Tangiora, but I see she's not here, but you are here representing her?
There's 2 seats for lawyers.
Now, we have 10 minutes, but I'm not going to start it until you've finished introducing yourselves.
Yeah, for the last 5 years of my own time, the skills that I've got. Try and be a politician for 20 years.
Ngā ora mōna ahau no Opatama. Continue, mate. Whananga.
Yes.
And Las Betas, Mahanga. Kia ora.
Hi, Liz. Right, the floor is yours. And the clock is ticking.
Io ia iu io po I po o po tama Pautama te atua, pautama te wananga, pautama te taio, pautama taku kainga, o au ahika. A little bit nervous. Oh. Sit down, okay.
Relax.
So Pauline Tangiora is our kuikuia, and we've come to support her submission. She put in there about 4 kōreros, one to do with the Waipiata, which is a Opatama stream which flows through my village, and the Blue Bay wastewater system, and maunga fuel. But I can only, in my experience and who I am, and with my friends, talk about Opotama. Opotama is a connected tile, and I'm just going to talk to you about the water. And our village is fed by an uphill puna, and that uphill puna is a very special puna because it takes great pressure to come from deep within the land to pump that water up the top. What's really cool about our puna is that it gravity feeds all the way down through our surface tributaries and creek to our village and into our homes. And as it runs down to the sea, it goes through a couple of wetlands, a peak one behind our marae. So the water feeds the marae and the kura. And it then goes into an open wetland, which, I don't know, has anyone been to Mahia Beach? Okay. So Opotama, we say, is the original rocket lab. And Opotama means the stairway to heaven. So when you come through our village, that's who we are, that's what we love about ourselves, and that's the wānanga, what we teach our children. So we are all kuis. We have grandchildren. That's our succession plan, is our children. And so that story I just told you about the water, and adding on, because I've heard you talk about aquifers, our whole village is a water catchment area, and the aquifers are all underneath, and they flow deep below the sands. And so I'll go into the wastewater system. Between Opotama and Mahanga are the biggest aquifers in the Mahia. These are tonga, these were gifts. I'm the poorest artist, I'm a mahitoi, poorest artist and poorest person. But if it wasn't for that aquifer and those waterways, I wouldn't be here, and certainly in 50 years' time, our families and your families probably wouldn't be able to enjoy the place either. When the wastewater at Blue Bay went in, it was for a specific purpose, and over time, for whatever reasons, it's been added to a point where it's not meeting the consents at present. And as a ahika, as a beneficiary in terms of the whenua there and the takutai, and as an affected party, that waste system, it has to be addressed. It has to be addressed. It's not good paru going into the water table. And we are all complicit, whether it's farmers, forestry, freedom campers, or our own behaviour, because we've forgotten how beautiful this tonga of water is. We really have a duty to keep that in place. So I don't really have much more to add, other than aroha mai, if I've offended anyone. Aroha atu, much love, and an invitation to our village to come and hear our concerns. Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Kia ora, moana.
Oh, and if you want to have a look, I brought the village with me. It's over there in that little porofita. That little mandala there. So if you want to have a look, it's everything, the birds. I've heard different ones talk about the birds, the beach, the trees. It's all there. So, kia ora.
One thing that I'd like to say is that with the Blue Bay wastewater and the freedom camping, what do you call it? Long drop? What is it there? It's a dump station that's been locked up. Hawke's Bay Regional Council really have to address that and come back to the ahika and find out what's wahitapu there. There's been no consultation with Māori over the significant sites and the damage that's been caused by freedom camping and other people. You know, we don't just blame freedom camping, we blame visitors as well. It's really changing down there. You know, you go, if you've been to Mahi and you've been to Uputama, you will actually go back there and you'll see the desecration, because that's what it is. That's the only way that we can say what's happening there. It's changed dramatically, and we've gone to Wairoa District Council. They keep on saying it's Hawke's Bay Regional Council's that should be dealing with the freedom campers down there. So we actually don't know who is meant to be dealing with the freedom campers and protecting the sand dune, the aquifer. It's all integrated, and that's what Nuttall's trying to say. From the top of the hill down to the ocean. So yeah, we'd really like to see something. Come and visit us.
Any questions? Yeah, any questions?
Just acknowledge. Yeah, Patty's just going to acknowledge your presence here, which I really want him to do. But before he does that, I think we need to find out who is responsible. Is it freedom campers and the long drop? Is it the district council or is it regional council? I'm not sure, so we will find out and come back to you on that. Patty?
Yeah, and perhaps just to add to that, because one of the key Hawke's Bay people involved in this, because there's Doc who are involved in it as well, is Nathan. So we'll do that. We'll do some more work in looking into this, and then katahi ka oki mai. Engari, he tū tēnei me ki rā, kei rungi au nei kōrero, te mihi ki o koutou ngā kui. E manu mauria mai rā, kei runga i te tono nā te kui a Pauline. Anō reira, tēnei te mihi ki o koutou me ena ngā kōrero, me te taonga kai muri rā, nau nei whāriki hea hei oho, kei runga ia o matua kore, kei runga te ki nau nei tono mai, ka nui te mihi, te nā koutou. Me ngā mate kei rungi o koutou o pautama, o ronga mai waine, kei runga i tēnō ngā whenua, ka nui te mihi.
Thank you, and give our best to Pauline when you go home.
Sure.
Thank you. Todd and Adam. We weren't expecting your illustrious presence here
Want to
today.
say something? Or is she just waving?
Oh,
Just waving it.
Before you take this chair,
yes.
I want to register my connection with the Port of Napier as a director.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Rex, good to see you.
Oh, sorry, Rex, before you start, I've got to leave. Pick up my kids.
Okay, thank you, Michelle.
Good.
So, guys, you know the rules. Got 10 minutes. Well, I'm telling you right now, Todd, there's rules here. Not like the Plymouth Port, you know. So, you've got 10 minutes, and if you want... Adam's going to do it. He's looking ready to go anyway. So, you've got 10 minutes, and if you want to keep questions from councillors, then you need to keep it shorter than 10.
Yep, we'll keep it short and brief. We've just prepared a short paper just to run you through
So we'll outline just what the current situation is. If you're not familiar with what we're here to talk about, Rex, we're here to talk about the Harbour Master proposed changes to the charging to the port for those services for safe marine management in the harbour. So we're just going to outline exactly what the current situation is, what our thoughts are in terms of the proposal, and then and also just give you some comparisons to what's happening around the rest of the country in terms of how other ports are being currently charged for these sorts of services. So just as an outline, and Adam will also go into a bit more of the detail, but just as an outline, today the port doesn't actually get charged by the Regional Council for any Harbour Master services, but there's a proposal on the table to charge the port for Harbour Master services, which, and to some extent, we agree with. We think there is probably a case to be had for a proportion of the charges to be shared, which we think is reasonable. I guess it's getting clarity about how that should be applied and for what we actually would receive from the council for paying for that service that's being provided. So what I'll do is just outline, or Adam might outline for me, just exactly what it is that we get charged today and what the port provides today as a means of providing safe harbour management. If you could do that, Adam.
Yep. Thank you, Todd. So as we sort of alluded to, we disagree with the proposed charges as they are in the long-term plan, but we acknowledge that we could provide a contribution which better reflects the actual proposition. So currently, Napier Port provides and funds a number of navigational safety aids, in fact, all of them. So we maintain a harbour control 24/7, which manages access to and from the port and in a harbour. We look after log retrieval within the port and channel. We conduct all the on-water assessments of pilot exempt certificate holders and attend the oral exam. We maintain all the hydrographic surveying and on-water vessel support for oil spills, incidents and enforcements without the Regional Council having a vessel. And Napier Port provides all the procedures and operating parameters for the Napier Port pilotage area for all SOLAS vessels, so all commercial vessels. And we help with co-funding of educational information and equipment with the Regional Council to both the Yacht Club and Fishing Club around information for recreational boat users around awareness of the port. So that's the services we provide. We also fund, provide and maintain the following physical navigational aids, that being channel markers, special purpose buoys, the north and south cardinal marks outlining Pania Reef, tri-axis buoys, which are weather data buoys. The data is provided to public and recreational users. We maintain 2 on-port weather stations, and we use a program called nView to collate and store that weather data, and that's also shared with external users through our websites, on TV screens, in multiple locations, and through WAP, so people can download that and utilise that information. And we also maintain landside navigational markers and lights. I won't go into the detail, and all the notifications of changes are done by our harbour control team. We also use the pilot vessel to provide navigational safety and bylaw enforcement. So that vessel's out there clearing the channel prior to ships arriving. And we obviously maintain all the dredging.
So I guess from a current state perspective, those services that we currently provide, or facilities and assets that we currently provide, on average around about $250,000 to $500,000 per annum to do that for the port. That's exclusive of any dredging that the port also undertakes in that marine channel today. That's all been set up and managed because it's made sense to do so for the port, being the main user of that area, to do so. It's a historical arrangement and it's worked quite well to date. So I guess the next step is, what is the proposal from the council in terms of charging for those services that they don't provide? I'll just outline that, Adam.
So based on the charges as they've been proposed to date, we've done some calculations, and based on 2019 year being the last full year without impact of cruise changes or COVID, we estimate the cost to the port to be $722,422, based on that 3 cents per tonne levy that is proposed. That's excluding the costs associated with pilot assessment fees or hot work permits or the Tier 1 oil response. That's just on the levy of shipping. And in 2020, obviously being COVID impacted, $654,000, and year to date this year, $192,000.
So obviously there's a bit of work to do around actually how those charges would be applied. We've already had a conversation with the Regional Council about the proposal, separate from the submission, but we'd like to work that through with the council and acknowledging that we said at the start we do think there is a fair proportion that we should contribute, but it's about working out what's fair and reasonable. Just as a benchmark as well, we've provided some information there around what other ports are being charged by their regional councils. Now, draw your attention to the likes of Auckland, where they're charged $190,000 per annum, access to 3 harbour masters all year round, 7 days a week, and a much larger scale of operation than obviously our operation. So some comparable costs would be something we would ask you and urge you to consider.
Todd, my first question is, do you really want to be compared to Auckland Port?
Absolutely not.
Take that off the table.
But in terms of a size and scale, Rex, I think it's a good benchmark to draw your attention to in this instance. So I guess in summary, we're keen to work with the council around working out something that will work for both parties. We think that what we're providing today is that it makes sense for us to provide that. If that was to be provided by the regional council, there'd be a significant cost to the regional council to provide those services. So we're looking for a pragmatic outcome that we can achieve together here.
Thank you, Todd. Craig, first question.
Thanks, guys. Can you just, to those comparators, because I was going to make exactly the point on Auckland, my eyes go straight to Tauranga, which we'd like to, for a number of reasons, kind of look at to compare ourselves. Can you just translate, going to 70.5 cents per tonne, I think I read that.
Per 1,000 tonnes.
Pardon?
So where the proposed cost to us would be $3.
Because I've read
versus 17.5 cents.
So that's the apples and apples.
Yeah, apples and apples would be $3 versus 17.5 cents.
Can you, and I know you're in discussions, I understand that, but that's a massive difference. I just thought it was the way I was interpreting it or something.
Yeah,
so doesn't necessarily mean we're wrong. So
no, and I think
why are they wrong?
I think it's about understanding about the size of vessels and the weights of vessels and actually what's an appropriate charge to apply. Because obviously the Regional Council in Tauranga has done the work with Tauranga to work out what would be a reasonable fee given the gross tonnage of vessels that are actually coming and going in and out of the port. Whereas if we applied the same theory here, we would be, we believe, charged disproportionately too much.
It's no different because we're by and large a lot of logs. Is there some significance in
logs
tonnage
and
there?
container vessels?
Containers,
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
Sure.
Isn't the real issue here that until recently all the ports were owned by local councils or the regional council, and they were one and the same effectively, and so no one ever thought to sort of effectively separate the charges because you were dealing with 100% owned entities, and so are you really challenging us to have a look at the theory behind this before we get to the practice?
I think so. Yes, there is a historical arrangement that I think has made sense under 100% council ownership for the port to maintain and meet the costs of some of these safe navigational management practices. But applying the charge without recognising the work that the port's already doing and the costs the port's doing, I think needs to be relooked at.
And to add to that, Southport, which is currently a listed company, doesn't pay anything for their harbour master services. So as much as that theory is practical, and I agree with it, Southport currently don't pay for harbour master services even though they're a listed company also.
Don't they have a student fee, no student fees down there too?
And as shareholders of the port, we don't want to compare ourselves with Southport either.
Cool.
Todd, given that we're in negotiations, that you are in negotiations with our executive team, have you got a starting point?
Yes, we've drafted an MOU. We have an existing MOU with the Regional Council about what we should and shouldn't provide. So we're just in the process of sending that back to the Regional Council to update. And I think the next conversation is then to work out a sensible and a proportional amount to be charged.
Negotiations are ongoing. Okay, Will, you got a question?
Yeah, just a quick one, but possibly just a good one. Log retrieval. Are logs falling off ships out there, or what's that? Or
We on a number of occasions we will get logs that fall into the harbour that for whatever reason while they've been loaded or off the back of the stacks may fall into the inner harbour. So we monitor that and do our best to retrieve them out of the harbour as quickly as possible so they don't go out and become a safety hazard for the public as well.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So after heavy rainfall, they also end up in the bay. So we retrieve them out of the shipping channel to avoid.
So these are actually not logs that actually came via your port, they're floating out about there?
Both. So the ones inside the harbour are ticketed, and you can tell they've been to the port, but other logs are unidentifiable without markings, which means they're in a log shape, but they've come.
Thank you, Todd and Adam. So obviously this is part of your negotiations with our team, so...
We had to follow the process, Rex.
Yeah, it's a good process.
Yep.
Very good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for hearing
and
us.
thanks thank you for coming along and
Thanks, Peter.
sharing this with us.
Look forward to a positive outcome.
Okay, have we got a quorum? Yeah, okay. So, Jock, you're on, mate. Good to see you, Jock. You got to pass things around too. We won't.
Also be happening all the amount of sailing ships that we've sunk. I had to
Chairman, before the next submitter starts, can I just raise an issue that's been vexing me about that last submission? And it is to ensure that we have, we're approaching this as we would any other submitter or any other entity or any other benefits and burdens situation. So while I think it's pragmatic that the officers might be working up an MOU, what I would like to see for deliberations is a principled basis upon which the total navigational safety cost of that service is in the frame, and what we appropriately contribute to that is in the frame, and what they bring to the parties in the frame as well. This is not a place, obviously, and I'm just stating it for the record, where this is about cosy deals between us and our shareholder. It has to be absolutely above board and on a principled basis, and I just wanted to record that.
I thought that was also in the basis of my question to them, that we had an arrangement before. It's now time for us to set out what are the rules underpinning this.
Yes, we need those principles pretty much clearly in front.
I think it was quite clear. I think the facts are here.
That's exactly what's got to be done here.
Okay, Jock, just tell me when you're ready to go. You've got 10 minutes, and use the whole 10 minutes, or you could use less and have questions.
Thank you. I'm sure I'll use less, but and so you're free to ask questions. With respect to the handout I've just sent around, that's really just to give you an idea of some of the stuff we have on the go at the moment. And one of the things that in the short and longer term is causing us a bit of grief traffic-wise. So just to go through each of those, there's the aquatic centre underway, and that's a fair way down the track, due to be completed about this time next year. The second slide is the area where the accommodation hostel is going. So those are the two things that Sir Graham Avery has put together a big lump of money for, primarily out of the Shovel Ready Fund. So those things are happening now. The third slide is of a building for CD cricket and Giants boxing. So it's a big building, it's about 2,000 square metres. That's due to get underway in a couple of months' time. And the fourth slide is showing you some of the car parks we're intending to install to compensate for those that have been taken out via these buildings, and to add some additional parks, about 100, to accommodate the growth that's going to occur as a consequence of that development that's underway. So the summary of all that really is to say we've got a hell of a lot on the go, and I don't know if any of you have been there on a Saturday morning, but it's bedlam at the moment. It's absolute bedlam. In fact, I stuck out a media statement last week saying, look, please be patient, you're getting a lot of good stuff coming, ratepayers, which actually, as an aside, by and large they haven't paid for. Actually, I'll just do a brief aside and I'll keep within the 10 minutes, but 5 or 6 years ago I was sitting doing a presentation to this group, and you gave us $2 million to assist in putting together the Hawke facility out there. In just over 12 months' time, it's going to be an 80 million plus facility at the park. Most of that has been non-ratepayer money, so it's been a really, really good return and a good model that's working really well on behalf of ratepayers. But getting back to the subject, we are under a lot of pressure at the moment, and although all this stuff is coming really at no cost to a lot of ratepayers, there's no shortage of complaints that we're getting. And I knew when I issued that release we'd get a bit, and we did. It's coming thick and fast via social media. Quite apart from that, the inconvenience of it, it is a health and safety issue. We've got Māori wardens there doing their thing and doing a good job on Saturday, but
To a reasonable extent, you can't control driver behaviour, and some of that's not great, and so it's not a satisfactory situation at the moment. I do see what you are proposing insofar as on-demand transport is concerned as being part of the package that's required to change behaviour. I know a lot of those people that come there on a Saturday don't need to be in a car to come there, they could jump on a bike, but people just aren't doing that at the moment. With an on-demand package, you actually take away the excuse. So for a lot of people that are in that vicinity, in fact, there is no excuse not to use it. I'm not saying they're all going to, of course they're not, but in my experience with this sort of thing, if you can take away the excuse for not using something, you're going a long way towards solving that problem. Now, the 3 areas that you're proposing to have it in Hastings are very valid areas for us. We get, a lot of people will come from there on Saturdays. And one of the things I would like you to consider is to have the park in the loop on Saturday mornings for those 3 areas that you're looking towards. We would market that heavily through our databases. And I can see it being convenient to a lot of parents who have kids attending multiple sports on Saturdays, and it's very difficult for them to get to 2 or 3 venues. If they can put one of the older kids, particularly in public transport, to get to it and get back again, that's going to be of a lot of use to them. As I say, we've got big databases. There's something like 7,000 netballers who access that place on and off on a Saturday, a lot of hockey players, a lot of soccer players and so on. So we would promote it through all those networks. So I think we could work pretty hard to make the thing a success. So really that was my plea, to consider putting us on the list on Saturday mornings for those loops.
Thank you, Jock. Questions? Martin, have you thoughts on this? Or
yeah, well, I have thoughts, but I'm just trying to figure out how to put a question mark on the end of them.
Do it anyway, and we'll judge afterwards.
Well, can I preface the question with, we've been to Timaru, well, I've been to Timaru recently with the transport team to really lift the hood on this. And the big message we got was interrogate your community, because you'll have public transport demand profiles in Hastings that aren't in Timaru or in Napier. And so one of our key tasks as part of the pilot, just so you're aware, is not to, as early as we had hoped, to replace the 3 bus services with on-demand, but for the first 6 months of the trial, actually really get to know where those demand centres are and work with the supermarkets, the DHB. And what you're telling me, here's my question, is that you're offering to sit down with us and work out how your demand could be met through this pilot to sort of prove its concept.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's several different ways. I hadn't actually understood what you just said, but I do now. There's several different ways that we could do that. Off the top of my head, we could segregate that down to netball clubs, schools, for example. Off the top of my head, we could engage Mahora School and see if there's an opportunity there to get their kids involved in that part of it. So we'd be very happy to be part of that.
If I could put it this way, so basically those sports clubs could be encouraged to download the app and basically register demand for trips, which then start driving the service.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jared first and then Rick.
Yeah. Hi, Jock, how are you?
Good.
Tom on his way, hopefully?
He is, yeah.
Great, fantastic. Have you considered park and ride? So we have other car parks within the city domain that are free and are not used because people are not working. Yep. That maybe actually with the Transport Committee you actually can organise actually bus services that do parking off-site and then actually have shuttle buses working that way. It's possibly a lot safer.
Look, maybe that could be part of the package we're chatting about with Martin just now. One Achilles heel I do have is that we had an experiment 3 or 4 years ago now, I think, where dedicated buses were brought to the park on Saturdays. It didn't work, unfortunately, and I think a lot of that was just to do with it wasn't an on-demand service, so it was less convenient to people. Not sure where park and ride would fit within that sphere, if you like, but it'd be interesting to include it as part of that research.
Rick?
Is what you're suggesting that, take for example Mahora, a very fine school, the Mahora hockey team could all assemble at Mahora School and in the on-demand bus take them to the park.
Yeah, yeah.
The parents only have to get the kids to school place. That would work.
They walk to school, probably.
Kids know where to go.
Probably walk.
Probably walk. It's just, I think that would work really well.
Yeah, well, the beauty of this system is that they can order the trip half an hour before, you know, they're all there.
In Timaru, there's a lower patronage on Saturdays compared to during the week.
Oh, look, I don't know the weekly profiles, but the only thing that I will tell you is that the bus drivers are run off their feet. And they are pushing it longer and longer and longer. So it's sort of 7 till 7 on the weekends at the moment.
Is there any other questions for Jock?
Well done.
Thanks, Jess. Thanks, Jock. It's a really good point.
Victims of your own success, I'm afraid, Jock. So
Sorry?
victims of your own success, I'm afraid. So keep up the wonderful work.
Yeah. Tell the punters that, so they're nicer to us.
Are they moaning, Jock?
Oh, there's a lot of moaning, yeah. I get it, because it's very inconvenient, but they don't know a lot of stuff they're pretty much getting for free. It's all the new assets they're getting.
Yeah. They're moaning about the parking. Is that the thing, that
Yeah.
the big moan?
Yeah.
Nothing else, though?
No, happy with everything else. But
Just the
yeah.
parking?
Yeah.
There always was going to be an issue, wasn't
Yeah.
Think
Okay.
about bike facilities.
Thanks, Jock.
There's very poor bike facilities.
We've got some very underutilised bike racks there.
Is Alison and Donald Strickland here? No? Michelle? Are you Michelle? No?
Yeah, great.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. Are you Michelle?
Yes, I am. Hi.
Oh, Michelle, welcome.
Are you sure you don't want a quick break before I
No, we're into it.
Okay.
You're going to keep us enthused.
Oh, I am. Oh gosh. After the day I've had, I'm not too sure.
Well, Michelle, so you have 10 minutes.
Okay.
And councillors will want to ask you some questions, so if you keep it under that, that's good.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, kia ora koutou katoa. My name is Michelle Lucas, and I'm here today on behalf of CCS Disability Action, and in my role as Access Coordinator for Tairāwhiti Hawke's Bay. So, hopefully most of you are familiar with CCS Disability Action, but if not, we are a community organisation that supports disabled people and advocates for their inclusion in our communities. And accessibility is a major focus, and we have a nationwide network of access coordinators who work closely with local government as well as building and transport industries. So we run the mobility parking scheme throughout Aotearoa, and locally we support Regional Council with the facilitation of the total mobility scheme through the assessments that we complete for the application process, and we assist in the other regions as well with this. So in our submission to Council, we outlined our support for the on-demand transport service, as this presents the opportunity to design and implement a public transport service that is fully accessible for all to utilise and enjoy. Unfortunately, our current public transport is not a viable option for a number of our community, in particular those with a disability or access need, as there are a number of barriers preventing them from utilising this service. So having fully accessible public transport is important, as it was noted in a recent survey conducted by B-Lab, which I included in my submission, that transport is a key barrier for New Zealanders with a disability access need, and that this barrier inhibits their ability to be active and contributing members of our society, our economy and our local communities. So in the survey, 27% of survey respondents recorded that they were currently unable to utilise public transport because of inaccessibility, and 86% of respondents noted that they required some form of accessibility support in place to use public transport. So with regards to the proposed on-demand service, we would like to offer our support to Council to identify any barriers that may affect the accessibility of the service and assist with finding solutions to rectify these. We also ask that Council collaborates with the local disability reference and advisory groups, and also our community organisations that support and work alongside disabled people and their whānau in our region to ensure that the design of the service, that the service is designed to be barrier-free. The trial conducted in Timaru that you were speaking about just before, it identified some issues in relation to the design of the vehicles. In particular, they found that the gradient of the ramp meant that some wheelchair users were unable to navigate it independently and had to have a support person. And also that I think they also found that the motorised wheelchairs, there wasn't enough space to navigate inside the vehicle as well. And the Waikato Council has taken on board this feedback, and I understand that they've held off from purchasing 2 of their vehicles until they address some of these issues. So obviously that would be important for the Hawke's Bay Regional Council just to identify any of those limitations and barriers with regards to the vehicles as well. In our submission, we also asked for Council to consider a fair exemption for all people with disabilities, along with a support person if they're required, for the on-demand service. We would like to take this a step further and encourage that Council adopts this exemption for the whole transport network offered in the Hawke's Bay, so that it would apply to all bus routes and not just the on-demand service. We also ask that this exemption is extended to anyone who requires support with access as a result of injury or a medical condition, and suggest that the same criteria utilised by the Mobility Parking Scheme is adopted to ascertain a user's eligibility for fair exemption. The reason that we're asking for this exemption is because disabled people are financially disadvantaged in terms of transport options. A report issued by Statistics New Zealand in 2018, titled Measuring Inequality for Disabled New Zealanders, concluded that disabled people are more likely than non-disabled people to be unemployed or not in the labour force, have lower average incomes, and report greater income inadequacy. It was also noted that because disabled people often face additional costs compared with non-disabled people, lower average income likely contribute to the smaller proportion of disabled people reporting enough income to meet their everyday needs. Sorry, my voice is quite croaky today. So as a result of this financial deprivation, for many disabled people, the cost of transport is another barrier that either affects the frequency of their use of public transport or prevents them from utilising the service altogether. So we ask that Council approves this exemption, and note that this also aligns with what other regions have approved for their residents. For example, in the Waikato and Bay of Plenty regions, they have adopted this exemption through the implementation of accessibility concessions. The administration of the concessions is simple to implement, and it can be aligned with the Total Mobility Scheme, or a similar approach to what we've adopted with our mobility permit scheme, where the accessibility is eligibility is assessed by a GP. I've actually brought in copies of their criteria with their concessions, so you're more than welcome to have a look at that and see what they've outlined with their process. It's very simple to implement, and it aligns with the B card, so it's a pretty cost-effective way to make a service accessible for a number of people in our community. I think mainly for where we sit with the support and work that we do with our disabled people, it definitely is a real concern of public transport and how inaccessible it currently is. And it'd be really great to work with Council to be able to make the most of this new service if it's adopted, and make it a really positive outcome for our community. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank
so
you,
I
Michelle.
rushed through that.
No, you didn't.
If you have any questions, anything I can do to help. So.
Yeah, thank you, Michelle. We really appreciate the work it's really important work that you do, and we have been cognizant of this issue right from the beginning. So Martin is chair of our transport committee, so he's the man you want to ring up.
All right. Well, look, thank you for evidencing the support on behalf of CCS. I've just looked at the feedback that we've got from the Timaru study from Canterbury Regional Council, and Mari Simpson down there, she's positive, posted some positive feedback, as has Idea Services. But I'm alive to your point about the bus design. There are 2 bus types in Timaru. One is the Mercedes bus, which has a ramp, which gets right down to the footpath grade. I guess your point is to us to make sure that whatever type of bus we lease for this program is compatible with a disability service. That's your message?
It is indeed, and then obviously the affordability is a big concern for our people.
Your point is that as an organisation you want to be consulted.
Yeah.
And also that they're obviously not just our organisation, but there's other organisations that work closely with disabled people in our community as well, and that they're involved in the process.
Have you spoken to Mari about it and how they're finding it?
Briefly, and also working quite closely with the other access coordinators in our other regions that work with the other regional councils, and what solutions they've found as well with regards to the service. Even simple things like how to make the app more user-friendly and having alternative options for those that might not be able to use technology for various reasons. So that's the whole service delivery that needs to be
Very much. We
considered.
look forward to engaging with you further.
Rick?
I'm aware we have a total mobility service for which the council pays a considerable amount of money. What I'm not aware of is what the gaps are. So you're telling us that 27% aren't able to. Is it possible for you to describe for us those people that we support through total mobility, those people we support by giving them taxi chits and so on, because there's a lot of those going around the place, and where are the gaps? Because I don't see that in here.
Okay, so
Don't need to do it today, but I think you should come back with a Venn diagram kind of thing. This is what the council supports, this is how people get it, and these are the gaps, so we can clearly see what the gaps are.
Sure. Some of it actually falls to District Council too, with the local infrastructure that supports the transport. So there is issues with that as well.
Can't deal with that.
No,
you have to tell us.
but it feeds into
I get
how
that.
the on-demand transport service would be a positive because you're not relying on local infrastructure as well. So that's a good positive to take out of that. But the financial constraints, even with the Total Mobility Scheme funding, for a number of disabled people that may commute for work, they will get the funding from the council, funding from government as well. Yet it's still a very costly service for them to utilise, to the point where they may not be able to participate in the community on the weekends when they've committed financially to getting to work on 5 days a week. So,
but that's my point. I said I can't see the gaps, and you're you're describing them backwards. So I want you to describe for us what we cover and where the gaps are.
Sure.
And when we can see that, we then could be able to figure out what is a policy here.
Okay. The other thing I forgot to mention was currently in, if I've got enough time, sorry, because we facilitate the mobility permit scheme, currently in the Hawke's Bay region we've got 5,261 registered permit holders, and that's a lot of people utilising that service. And the infrastructure that supports that is lacking. There's not enough mobility parks, and the locations and the surrounding environment means that a number of those parks aren't actually usable, or the residents can't use the spots. So hopefully with the on-demand trial, that means that a number of those permit holders can actually utilise this alternative transport, and then that will take that pressure off the infrastructure and the issues that local council are also facing, and also there's a lot of mobility parking abuse. So yeah, there's another positive for the demand trial service as well.
Thank you, Michelle.
Cool, thank you.
Thank you for your submission.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to speak today.
Paul Bailey, see you sitting over there, mate.
I'll come up early. Been very helpful to council over the years.
Very helpful.
Are you guys actually quorum?
Yeah, we're quorate.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I couldn't remember there was 5 or 6 that needed
Hey, look,
to be
excuse me,
rounded up.
we're the ones
You're
who
offering
ask the
some
questions.
assistance.
Yeah.
Give us
Well, I was
some
just wondering if I was
Just
presenting
settle
to-
down.
I just wondered if I was presenting to council.
All the
or just-
important ones are here. You get that?
Haley, it's a point well made. I'm wondering the same thing.
This morning. That's all right.
Oh.
Yeah, right, we have 5 of us.
There's only 5 of you here.
But the simple point of it is, it's a hearing, it's not a committee meeting in terms of decision making.
Oh, fair enough then. That's all right. But I'm only presenting to 5.
We have a quorum. 5 is a
We-
quorum.
There's no quorum requirement.
That's all right. Anyway, this
Tell me when you're ready to go, Paul.
Okay.
Let's get rid of the chitter chatter. When are you ready to go? And I'll
Take a
press the
minute from
button.
his time for that.
Yeah. Only one. Look, I think my submission was pretty supportive of the direction that you guys are going in with the 6 consultation topics that you've raised. The only thing I want to say about those particular 6 topics is around communication of the benefits of what you're doing. For example, the on-demand public transport one, it wasn't until I heard Martin say that they already had a system running in a similar manner down in Timaru and what was going successfully that really kicked me into supporting what was going on there, because I was a little sceptical about what was going to happen. And similarly with the Right Tree, Right Place plan, I mean, I'm cognizant of what's happening there, but clearly there's a little bit of lack of understanding, especially up around Wairau, about what that actually means. So it'd be useful to make sure that's all really clear when you're communicating these issues. The only other
comment that I want to make about the long-term plan is that I remain fully supportive of the Future Farming Trust. I know it's not a consultation topic, but nevertheless it is a line in your intended expenditure. And so I just want to make sure that that good work continues, because in the long run, we, as a community, we can't tell people what to do. We need to encourage them to come along the journey with us, and I think the Future Farming Trust is a big part of achieving that amongst our farming folk. So that's all I wanted to say.
Oh, it's the shortest submission we've had.
Well, I can't. I've done so many of late that I can't remember which one I'm sitting in at the moment.
Righto, councillors. Questions, right? Start with Rick. Everyone's got to have a
Have
question.
you
got
got any more bouquets you'd like to throw at the regional council? Bouquets. Yeah, I have actually. I'm impressed. I'm super impressed with the way that the regulatory and enforcement, especially the enforcement team, seems to have beefed up their operations a wee bit and been prepared to smack a few people over the hands instead of just wiping them off with a wet bus ticket. I think that sends a really strong message to the community that we're serious. Well, you guys are serious about enforcing the rules that are in place. I mean, you need to have this carrot and stick approach. I see the Future Farming Trust as the carrot, but I see it's necessary that we have strong enforcement too as the stick. So yeah, there's another bouquet. Thank you. Oh, great.
Paul?
Any thoughts on the regional park?
Yeah, I think you have to be careful that it's not seen as opening the whole area up to for the public to go wandering through. I said more about it actually in my submission to Napier City Council, but I think it's a wonderful idea, and now that all the people that are involved are around the table and agreeing with each other, I think you've got to take the opportunity now, otherwise it may disappear. So I think it's putting it in as a regional park is not a bad thing at all. I think it's a great thing, but we've just got to be careful that we don't open the whole area up to the public, because it is still necessarily a wildlife sanctuary. You'd see it as a wildlife sanctuary first?
Yes.
Recognising that for millions of years birds have migrated through there, it always stopped up there
and all that,
yep. And they want to continue to do that.
Yeah, and they should be able to do that without interference from people wandering through. I'm not so much worried about people wandering through. I'm more worried that there are muppets out there who take their dogs with them, and that's very hard to police and control.
There are dogs that take their muppets with them.
I've had a number of arguments just walking around the estuary as it is with people with dogs in the past. Yeah.
Thank you, Paul.
You're the third person to mention that, so obviously it's an issue.
Oh, it's definitely an issue.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely an issue.
It's an issue. Look, it's an issue anywhere where, you go up and through into the bush or anywhere where dogs really should be kept on leashes because looking after the birds, and there are people who just don't understand the significance of that. And I appreciate that people love their dogs and like to let them roam and have a good time and everything else, but there's a place for it. In Napier, we're blessed with an awful lot of off-leash areas. Yeah. Not so. Hastings is shocking. Hastings is terrible for that.
Oh, we've got our dog park.
Yeah, but there's only the one real big dog park that I'm aware of.
Which one's that?
Oh, the Pakawai.
Pakawai.
How big's that?
Oh, it's a huge one.
It's huge.
Makes a bit of mess of my hour, though.
Yeah. But in Napier, of course, you've got all the green space where they allow off-leash areas, so anyone can basically walk their dog to an off-leash area and go for it. Not so much in Hastings. But that's not your problem. That's a lot of that city council stuff. So, yeah.
Any other questions for Paul? Thank you very much, Paul.
My job is done.
Thank you.
Job done, yeah. In half the time that you were required.
Sorry?
In exactly half the time that you had up your sleeve.
That's right. Well, I wasted a minute having an argument with Councillor Barker. So
nothing unusual about that.
No, nothing unusual about it either. It's all good. No worries.
Thank you, Paul.
See you.
Yeah, Paul.
So, councillors, we had someone miss out there. I don't know what Councillor Barker's got to say about this, but we're well in front of time. Is that good or bad?
That's a very good chairmanship.
I know,
very impressed.
But the problem is that our next submitter is 3:40. So do you want to stop now for a quick cuppa?
Might as well.
Might as well.
I think that's right.
Yeah, press on.
What do you do with a $2 million request from Cranford?
Chris was here before, wasn't he?
Yeah, Chris is here, but he's waiting.
He's waiting for it.
Yeah, he's waiting for one more person, so he might.
So let's stop for a cup of tea.
Yeah. See